Good morning. Today we are continuing the cultural history of the Richardson Independent School District, and it is my pleasure to be talking with Dr. James Griffin today. James worked in the Richardson Independent School District for 30 years, came here in 1957. It's a pleasure for me to be visiting with you this morning. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while.
We'll have an enjoyable time today. I'm looking forward to hearing some of your stories about the good old days.
How about that?
You came in 1957. What was your assignment when you first came here?
I came here as a head football coach and mathematics teacher.
At Hamilton Park High School.
At Hamilton Park High School.
People who are contemporary might not realize that at one time there were 12 grades associated with the Hamilton Park School, and it had a full schedule of extracurricular activities, and was rather renowned for its athletic and musical prowess in extracurricular activities. What had you done prior to coming to the Richardson School District?
I was in the Greenville School District for 3 years, where I was the assistant basketball coach and football coach and science teacher.
At Greenville?
At Greenville, Carver High School.
Oh, Carver, yeah. This is in pre-integration days.
Right.
Oh, okay. Where had you gone to college? Where did you do your college?
Jarvis Christian College.
At Jarvis, yeah. Played football at Jarvis.
Of course.
Oh, yeah, right. What kind of team did you have at Hamilton Park?
Well, the year I went to Hamilton Park, the school was about 3 years old and had never won a football game. Ooh. We won our first football game that first year and lost the rest of them. So in 5 years, we were able to win the state championship, and because we had some good kids. And it was just a matter of getting them used to playing competitive football, I think.
That community was rather new at that time, wasn't it?
Yes.
It hadn't probably developed the loyalty to the school and that sort of thing, and you had to cultivate some of that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did you have an assistant?
No, the first 5 years at Hamilton Park, I did not have an assistant.
All by yourself?
I coached football, basketball, track, and whatever else connected to athletics.
Yeah. Right. Who were some of your better players during those early years?
Spider Lockhart was probably the first renowned player we had, because he went on to be captain of the New York Giants. Leroy Brewster, Roosevelt Griffin, Lindolph Blakely, Thady Tillman, Andre Tillman, Boomy Thompson, Roland Cart, Joe Walton.
Oh, that's great players.
We had, and of course, we had a lot of players that only played just high school ball, as William Piggins, the Harold Bonners. Harold has a PhD and is a professor at Prairie View A&M now. Oh. And his brother Walter Bonner, Richard Bonner.
Yeah, I know Richard still works for us.
J.B. Wallace.
Yeah, J.B.
Yeah, all of those guys came through there.
Yeah. I didn't know Lindolph Blakely was a Hamilton Park product.
Oh, Lindolph was probably one of the quickest halfbacks you'd ever seen. And he went on to Tuskegee, where he was the leading punt returner for 2 years in the national polls.
NCAA.
Yeah.
Wow. He's a great coach at Richardson High School still. You had other assignments during your tenure here. When did you stop being a teacher and coach?
Maybe 2 years after we won the state championship. Okay. I moved into the assistant principal and local athletic director, head football coach. And that I didn't do any teaching then. Yeah. And I did that for a couple of years, and of course we lost Mr. Jones by death, and Dr. Pierce asked me if I would consider the elementary school as a principal.
So that's when you got out of the coaching?
Completely.
Yeah, right. Well, who were the administrators there when you first came to Hamilton Park? F.L.
Jones was the principal of all 12 grades.
Of all 12 grades?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Felix Jones.
Yes.
Great guy.
One of the finest men I've ever met.
He was still working when I came here in 1967, was very pleasant with me, gave me a warm reception, as he did all the new people here.
Yeah, Mr. Jones was an outstanding man.
And Mr. Goss.
Yes. Now, he came when they decided to split the two schools. And he came first. The first year, he was an assistant principal. Then the next year, they decided to go ahead on and split them, and Mr. Goss became the principal.
Yeah, he was the senior high school
Right.
principal, and Mr. Jones remained elementary school
Right.
principal. Yeah. Well, you got us up to you being an assistant principal and then elementary principal to replace Mr. Jones. You made other changes during the course of your career.
Well, when Mr. Goss left, after I'd been at the elementary school a couple of years, I was asked to take charge of the high school because they had, Mr. Goss left in the middle of the year, sort of like. And so when I went back down there, I had the whole 12 grades, and I had some assistant principals in the high school, and Clayton Bell was the assistant principal in elementary school. And so I had he and Charles Goodlow working with me. And from that setup, we closed out the high school because we had discussed it with Dr. Pierce and the other administrators at the time. When were we going to add some courses, or what we were going to do to upgrade the educational opportunities for our children?
Expand the curriculum.
And we needed something to be done, and so we made a decision that we would do one more year. And at the end of that year, we would start to move the high school grades into Lake Highlands, to Berkner, and Richardson High School.
And when did that happen? 71?
71.
Yeah. So the Hamilton Park High School was dissolved, and those students absorbed into the three existing high schools.
Right.
Well, no, Pierce existed at that time, but it was not geographically adjacent.
Feasible.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So they were distributed. My recall is that they sort of carved the Hamilton Park community into three sections, and each of those served as a feeder zone into one of the three existing high schools.
Well, those who lived north of the school went to Berkner. Those who lived east of the school went to Lake Highlands, and those who lived west of the school and in front went to Richardson High.
Richardson High School.
Yeah, and when the Justice Department got on us about the junior high school, we followed that same lineup.
Yeah, kept those same zones.
Right.
So they went to Northwood Junior High, Richardson Junior High, and Forest Meadow Junior High. Right. Did that take place like in a couple of years? By
in a year.
In one more year.
Yeah.
So in 72, we dissolved the junior high school.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, I remember the infamous meeting over at Richardson Junior High cafeteria when John and Raymond came from the federal court.
That's right.
Got Judge Taylor's decision.
Yeah.
And it's like the day before school, and you all had to post. Yeah, it was
night
like
before
6
school.
or 7 o'clock at night. And
we worked all night getting records together.
Routes and everything.
And we moved teachers during the night and told them what to report the next morning, which was a culture shock.
Ooh, quite a culture shock.
Yes.
How were staff and community and students handling all of this furor regarding integration at that time?
Well, the students wanted to upgrade their educational opportunities, and they were looking forward to that. And I think we made one real strategic move, because in the spring of the year we moved to high school, the kids who were in the band went over and tried out for the band. Football players went over and visited with the coaches. The coaches came over and visited with them. Those who were in student government went and campaigned for the schools they were going to. And as a result, they were elected to offices in those schools, and they participated in the offices they would have held in Hamilton Park. We talked a long time about that because we felt that you just cannot take everything and don't give them the opportunity to participate with the masses. Now, after they got there, it was left up to them to maintain that kind of relationship where they could participate.
But you had a plan to transition to enable them to become a part of school life wherever they were going.
Right, because the principals from those schools came over to Hamilton Park, and they got a chance to meet them. The counselors came, they got a chance to talk with them. So we tried to make it as smooth and binding as we possibly could.
Okay, continuing that progression, The junior high was dissolved, ceased to exist in 1972, so that left only an elementary school.
Right.
And you were the principal
Yes.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Was Clayton your assistant at the
Yes.
elementary school, Clayton Bell?
Right.
Yeah. When did the
No, Clayton and no, I'm sorry, Clayton and
Goodloe.
Goodloe, they moved as visiting teachers, working with all of the high schools and
Yeah.
junior high schools to try to make a smooth transition, and they did that for a year or so. And when we began to do some other things, then we got Clayton back, and Goodloe remained.
Went to Berkner.
With Berkner High.
Went to Berkner. Right. When do you recall the situation where they began to integrate the faculty at Hamilton Park Elementary School?
Well, after we were there, maybe a year after we had the visit from the Justice Department, we made one change and we brought in some teachers. And when we brought those teachers in, that was the beginning of the change. We moved several people and we brought in several young teachers. They didn't have much experience, but they were new and they had no problems of coming because they had no relationships.
Yeah.
But after we'd done that, when we made the mass changes, when the Justice Department came back on us and we set up the Pace Setter program, when we made that mass change at midnight, that was to me one of the worst things we had ever done to teachers.
Just the shock of the suddenness of it without prior knowledge or planning.
True. And we had no idea it would be like that. And because if, hindsight, I would say we should have sent more than one black teacher to a school, because when they went there, most of them had no one to
to relate
to, share their problems with. So I became their counselor. In the afternoon after school, they all came back to see me. And it wasn't too much I could tell them, but I tried to help them to make the adjustments. So I think we should have done that a little bit different. But I know we should have.
Sure, that was quite a shock.
Yes, it was.
Because of so little advance notice, practically no advance notice, and then the shock of having to leave a comfortable place, because as I recall, all of those people had been at Hamilton Park several years. There were none of them that had just been there a brief period of time, and so they were uprooted from their comfortable surroundings.
And when you call a person around 10, 11 o'clock at night, tell them you report to such a place the next morning, that is a shock.
I'm sure, I'm sure that's true. How was the community surrounding Hamilton Park when you first came there in '57?
When I came in '57, the community was growing, it was still young, and they thought they were the elite in an educational setup that they felt was going to be a great setup. And we had good support, very strong PTAs, and they tried to help supply the things we needed to have a good educational program. And we worked very closely with them and they with us. And they had some ideas about things ought to be done, and of course Mr. Jones worked with them, and we came up with ideas and suggestions about how to do it. One of the things that all of us were interested in is trying to improve test scores, because we had some very smart students. We wanted to get them in the best schools and things of that nature, and we knew that testing was one method for entry.
That support has continued over the years, and the community has been very vital in the success of Hamilton Park School, even after the Pace Setter program, because they still have an investment in that their students go there. And they've played a very important part in the success of the Pace Setter program. That was a two-way street. They were having to make a big adjustment, and the volunteer people were having to make a big adjustment.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people fail to realize, and some of them have just begun to realize it now that live in the park, and that is those youngsters homeschooled. That part never did leave the fact that it was a home school for them, and they realize that, and as a result of they think that they have as you said, an investment in that school. And if someone had suggested that we change the name from Hamilton Park to just Pace Setter, and then you had a cry from the community. At least I got the vibes from it, so I knew that was not feasible.
They didn't want to destroy that identity
That's
that
right.
had been developed, and the connection,
Ownership,
because it did serve that community.
That's right.
And that's a good point that you made, that really the volunteers were outsiders coming on someone else's turf.
That's right.
And that had to be dealt with, and fortunately it was dealt with appropriately, and has worked out pretty successfully, I'd say. Pacesetter has received all kinds of acclaim
That's right.
for that approach to the integration problem. And I think it's certainly been a successful educational experience for the majority of those youngsters. Would you agree that Richardson was fortunate that integration was accomplished with the ease that Pacesetter sort of facilitated?
Yes, I think that was probably one of the best moves we made during that time, because we did not limit any expense in making the program work. I mean, we went to all kinds of workshops and brought in extra people to help prepare the people's mind that's going to work there, how to deal with all situations. But they still had to go through the experience of doing it.
Yeah.
And then when we started to get in some black teachers, and I understand they got more now, and so that will still make it a better program, because you got to have some role models.
Yeah, need to have a kind of a reverse integration of that faculty.
That's right.
Because 50% of the students are still black students, and they need role models and identification.
Yes.
Along those same lines. What year did Pacesetter take place in?
I believe it was 1974. I don't know why 74 sticks in my mind.
I'm not sure either what the actual year. That sounds about right from my recall. Kind of in a fishbowl those first few years, weren't you?
Oh yeah, we had people there all day and half of the night, want to know what we were doing, how we were doing it. And we had news people trying to make us say that Phyllis and I couldn't work together, and that was new, because people just didn't buy the concept of a black-white principal relationship in this area, because that was a totally new innovation.
For the sake of this audience, we may have skipped something there. What are you talking about when you say black-white principal, and who is this Phyllis person?
Oh, Phyllis Owen, she was had been the principal over at Stults Road Elementary.
Yeah.
And at one time we were talking about merging the two schools together.
Yeah.
So when we set up the Pacesetter program, Phyllis came as one of the co-principals.
Co-principal. Yeah.
And she worked with the instructional part and did some of the things that I did. And I worked with the administrative part and did some of the things that she did. So when one of us were out, the program never suffered, because both of us knew the program through and through.
And certainly there was some symbolism,
of course,
in that having a black and white principal, because that was the nature of the school.
Yes.
That was a good selling point, I'm sure, with both groups that were involved there. You've seen a lot of changes over the years. What were some other assignments that you had during your career in the district? Well,
when I left the Pacesetter program, Dr. Roberts asked me to set up a volunteer program. And his classic statement was, nobody in Richardson knows anything about it, and you got a volunteer program in Hamilton Park. So we want you to set up one for the district. And he said that I would let you go and look at others and see what they're doing, and you come back and you set up one for us. And so I wrote the program, and he read it, and Dick Hayes read it, and they gave me the freedom to implement it, and then to set it up and see what happened. So when we started, I think we had about 300 volunteers initially, and when I left the district, we had 9,000 volunteers. And it's because of the people in the Richardson School District who have a deep commitment to education and care for their children, and that's with all of the people, black, white, Hispanic, the Asians, and we had people who had done missionary work in Asian countries, and I got them, that was a member of the Christian church, and I got them to come and to be interpreters and help us with writing letters and things of that nature. They volunteered that time. So we had a good relationship with all of the agencies within the Richardson School District. And as a result of our program, we got into programs with Houston and Dallas and Beaumont and San Antonio.
Kind of a network.
Right, and as a result, I ended up being the founding president of the state organization and got them incorporated with the national organization.
Yeah.
And of course, the school district backed that 100%.
Sure. Yeah. You're kind of the father of volunteerism for Richardson Independent School District and maybe for the whole state of Texas.
Well, we had some other people had been doing it, but that's the first time we made a move to incorporate it as a
get a professional
statewide
organization identified with that
yes.
purpose.
And I imagine many of the districts throughout the state have basically our program in operation, because many of them wrote for information concerning our program.
Okay. As you reflect back over those 30 years, who are some of the great people that you were associated with? Some employees, students, parents?
Oh, we had
people that stand out in your memories.
Of course, from an administrative point of view, from central administration, of course, was Dr. Pierce, Dr. Roberts, Dr. Bynum, and of course, Dr. Ball, and those persons that work with him. And of course, you and mainly all of the principals that I got a chance to know.
Yeah.
But there were some people in Hamilton Park that people probably don't even know their names, like of course, Walter Gray, everybody know him now. Charles Goodloe, Clayton Bell, Mr. Goss, Mr. Jones, Miss Harrison. All those people were.
Elza McKnight.
Elza McKnight.
Bill Nowlin.
Bill Nowlin, oh yeah. Then
Mabel Davis.
Yeah, and
Maxine Cash.
Yes.
Mildred Brown.
Yeah, Mrs. Starks.
Vivian Starks.
Yeah, she was our first counselor.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Getting old, Bill, I'm forgetful.
I can relate to that.
Then you had some youngsters, the Williams children, of course, Leroy Brewster, and the Bussey children, the Stevenson children, and the Browns.
Good students and
good
leadership.
Students and leadership in the community. And the Blewitts, and of course Blakely, and the Wallaces, and the Barners, and the Piggins, and see, all these people were here when we came, the Turners, and some of them had gone to the old school out on
Court Road.
Court Road, and out on Abrams in the Fields addition, and of course we had Gurley Fields from that addition, and so there are a lot of people that had a lot to do. Mrs. Callahan, she was PTA president, Mrs. Harris, and of course we lost Mrs. Johnson a few days ago. She was outstanding in our community.
Curtis Smith, I recall.
Smith was outstanding, and Willie Smith, and oh, there were so many. Reverend Foster, Reverend Holmes. Reverend Holmes and I got there about the same time, and of course Reverend Foster, and they had a lot to do with the image of the community, in that they had a lot of control with the children at the church, and they had large attendance of young people, and they were outstanding leaders, and they provided entertainment, and when I say entertainment, recreational type activities, so that they would not be just kind of goofing around.
Right. Good influence on the upbringing of those youngsters.
Right.
Yeah, and so many of those people you named as students who are now employees of the district.
That's right.
And serving in the role that they saw those people
That's
serve
right.
in.
Of course, then you had one or two people I probably need to mention, and that's Gus Fields, who was there for years and years and years, and he was there with all of us, and of course Andy Anderson. They were custodians, but they were more than custodians.
Sure. Yeah, I know Gus was.
Yeah, and they had a deep, abiding relationship with that community. And of course you had others like that, the names I cannot remember this morning, that were outstanding people in our community. And it's because of people like that we developed those kind of relationships that make a school district strong, a community strong, and you have that bonding. And once you get that bonding in a community, you can do a whole lot of good things.
I've always said to novice principals that the key thing in being the principal of a school is when you get the community and the faculty and the students to trust you,
yes,
you can do almost anything.
That's right.
But you have to gain that trust by doing good things and making good decisions.
Yeah.
And obviously that was done at Hamilton Park because the community and the volunteer community
Yes.
has come to trust that school.
That's right. And one of the things I always said, if you're fair, honest, and equalize your opportunities for everybody, you won't have any problem doing that.
Right. As you reflect on those experiences, what are some of the feelings you have about having been a part of all of this?
Sometimes it's frightening to think that you were at the place where you could call some of the shots, and to listen to someone take an oath to go into a new job. And I had that opportunity a few days ago to watch young men go into the ministry, and as he took the oath of ordination and the oath of installation, it's awesome to sit and listen to what is expected. And that brings about commitment. And once you get that kind of dedication on the part of the leader, that will rub off on the persons who are associated with him. Then people will begin to trust you because you're going to give the very best that you have. And when you give all that you have, then you reach back and get that you still got hid back there and bring it forth. Then you can help a school, a church, a community to develop. And when you can keep that tie between school, home, and church, a community will grow and be what you want it to be.
One of my main interests in recent years has been the training and development of leadership. What prepared you to make some of the decisions that you were called on to make, especially in the very trying times of integration days, the very significant changes that came about in the school that you were a part of? As you say, you were in a position to have to call some shots, and they were not easy calls to make. How did you do that? What did you call on to make those decisions?
Well, I think that, and I found this to be more true as I have lived, that you got to have a deep religious conviction, and there's somebody greater than you that you can call on. You got to get off to yourself and meditate and think about it. You don't know what decision you might have to make, but some is going to happen that you need to have that kind of relationship. And once you get that kind of relationship, and you seem like you are directed to people who have a similar kind of commitment, then when you can get together, you can make those kind of decisions. They will not make them for you. They will give support to you if you make them. But you have to learn. The thing I think was the hardest thing I had to learn was once you make a decision, you have to be responsible for the decision you make. Sometimes you're going to blow it.
Yeah, you can't shift it to somebody else.
Right. Sometimes you're going to blow it. But at least you have the responsibility of saying, that was the best I had at the moment.
Right. And be willing to say, that was a bad call on my part. Yeah,
that's right.
I agree. James, it's been great visiting with you this morning, and I certainly appreciate you being willing to participate in this, and I guarantee you this is important because we're not making history, but we're recording history that was made recently, and someone in the future needs to be aware from an authentic source because you were there, instead of having to read about it or hear about it third or fourth hand. You are an eyewitness to those events, and it's valuable that we get this recorded for the future. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for asking.
Good friend.
Thank you.